As I look around, I see enthusiastic people, uncertain faces, skeptical faces. I would love to hear what the skeptical faces mean. Please feel free to tell me after. And then I'm thinking, by standing behind what I'm trying to say, trying to promote an additional way of emphasizing good education, I'm reminding of the judgment that courage is something that sometimes, courage is something which suggests to me that something else matters more than fear. So my fear of what the critics may have to say, which I'd love to hear, matters. But something else matters more than fear. And this is the courage that pushes me to go on through the slides, go on through the emphasis of reminding ourselves that having a positive mindset is pivotal to every action we take. In the English language, you have the expression, a glass half empty and half full. That is part of what positive means, is to look at things through the half full angle. Any other words that you thought in terms of positive that you wish to share? Encouragement, excitement, values, avoiding punishment. Punishment never works. Through the lens of positive psychology, it is an emphasis on asset versus deficiency. So when we take that as a given and becomes a cornerstone of our approach, not a novelty, but a cornerstone, the way our action will change and the young people's responses to us will change. Often the Americans exaggerate a little bit on this, if I may use a stereotype. And they say, I'm worth it, L'Oreal really pinpointed that advert. But it's something there in the psychology of being human, that validation and affirmation provides a basis for courage and self-growth. As simple as this. Reminding ourselves that affirmation is very important. It's no false praises. There have to be a praise or an affirmation based on effort, based on actuality. So it's an emphasis on asset versus deficiency as a taken for granted position. It is a genuine recognition of, let's look at what works well in spite of. Not a tick box exercise that you do as part of stretching, but it's an inherent value that you may want to adopt. It's an appreciation of the internal, relational, and contextual conditions that stimulate and sustain optimal functioning and thriving. Optimal functioning can thrive by having other people affirm the small steps we take, by having a witnessing that encourages gratitude, appreciation of best, sharing, and the positive aspects which define our way of being as human beings. Positive psychology was also taken up and made partnership with coaching. You would have heard of coaching. I understand there is a part of the government, I think it's a teacher education, I'll find out, there's a part of the government that now offers free coaching for teachers. I will send you the link. Because the government is recognizing the possibility that if well-being, pillars of the well-being can be achieved at school and can be developed as skills in the young people, then when they become citizens, they can return the same pillars of well-being into their community. And some of the pillars of well-being are doing something meaningful, a strong sense of self, positive relationships, flow, activities of flow, learning how to engage and sustain activities that give pleasure, and critical thinking. So coaching has paired up with positive psychology and have developed a number of interventions. And I would want to give you a sense of the combined interventions from positive psychology and coaching. And what matters for the group of coaching intervention I want to speak of is resourcing. So positive education, the way we defined it, as an attitude, as a mindset, as a process, when it's focusing on the resourcing through the lens of coaching and positive psychology, it involves one-to-one conversations that are focused on enhancement of learning and development through increasing self-awareness and a sense of personal responsibility. So coaching is available for teachers in an effort from the government to instill the ability of a teacher to support personal development outside curriculum. You will find this there. Positive definition from a colleague of mine there. So positive education through the lens of coaching and positive psychology is not only about teaching positive psychology in schools. So it's not only about introducing, for example, gratitude exercises, counting the blessing, affirmation, flow, identifying your strengths. But it's also focusing on the lived experience of everyone that's part of the school. The resourcing of the teachers as at the personal level, so they're able to journey with a young person beyond where they are. There are some links that I have forwarded to Helena. You could, if you're interested, you could follow them and learn more about what's available. Coaching is able to offer skills that include teaching practice, enhances leadership, increases educational attainment, and so forth. I just wanted to make you aware of these possibilities, and I will also send you the link for free coaching if you want to include that as part of your personal development. Resourcing is what I want to come back to it. Positive education offers resourcing in such a way that they develop better dialogues and better relationships, in a way that the learners feel valued, the learners believe in themselves and others, and the learners experience well-being. You see that the relationship between self and other is there, feeling valued and believing in oneself and others, and well-being. The same applies for coaching when it involves leaders. As a teacher, as a leader, if we enter into positive coaching conversations, staff feel valued, believe in themselves and others, and staff experience well-being. Achieving those three would already set a very strong platform for a mindset that can help flourish all the values that you speak of. Feeling valued, believing in themselves and others, and experiencing well-being. Now let me give you a more concrete example. Positive psychology has been critiqued by other psychologists for emphasizing too much on the bright side of life and not so much on the negative or the difficult side of life. And that's a serious critique, and it's a critique that we're working on and bringing the balance. But they have conducted some amazing experiments that can show causality, to demonstrate that the experience of positive emotions can broaden our thinking, can help us build resources, and has undoing effects in terms of negative emotions. So let me just move away from the slides and tell you about it. So 10 common positive emotions: joy, gratitude, serenity, interest, hope, pride, amusement, inspiration, awe, and love. Each of these 10 emotions have been experimented with, and they demonstrate the same effect. Here's one of the early experiments. So this was a university students. A group of 50 were divided randomly into two groups, and they were all told the same thing, is that in 20 minutes there will be a very important test, and if you fail that, will have implication for your marks. They had this 25 plus another 25 control group. Prior to taking the test, there were three conditions. The control group just sat into a room waiting for the 10 minutes. The other two, one group were exposed to a video that had humor and fun, and another group were exposed to a video that emphasized the importance of passing your marks, what your parents will say if you don't, and so on. What they have found is that the heart rate of the three groups, the heart rate differed. The neutral ones took a certain time to decline, but the heart rate in the other two groups dramatically changed. Those that had a fun experience, experienced humor, had a lower heart rate in terms of being nervous about the exams, and they did better at the exam. Those that were worried, those that were stressed, they did worse at the exam, and their heart rate and their stress level went up. Now that may sound common sense, but it's scientifically demonstrated now. And through another series of other exercises, the proposition that they come through is that when we experience a positive emotion in its intensity and its meaningfulness, our thinking broadens. We are able to see options and see repertoires of strategies, we are able to, as you say, think outside the box. We're able to appreciate diverse viewpoints. We're able to identify creative solutions. We are at our best if we engage with the task and experience a positive emotion. Positive emotions also build resources. So every time we have an experience of positive emotions, somehow our mind stores it. And it can be used for later. It stores it in terms of increased intelligence, increased cognitive skills, increased emotional regulations, also physically and well-being. Just by exposing oneself to these to positive emotions, we can develop a repertoire of resources. Yesterday I received a book for my child, and it was a book which was called Have You Filled Up Your Bucket? Have you heard that book? Have you filled up your bucket today? This is some clever educators in America who developed, it's age 6 to 8, a little story which tells the theory of the positive emotions broadened and built in child's terms. So it talks about a little boy who as negative things happen in his life in the morning. He drops the cereal, his sister plays with his toys. He has this bucket that keeps empty. And then later, when he has positive emotion, the bucket fills up again. And then they're contrasting his ability to manage his emotions and understand the world accurately. And it's done at the child pace, in a child-fun style. The message is the same. A reminder that unless we resource ourselves with positive emotions, with mindfulness, with a deliberate attitude of how we want to be seen, where do we want to go, if that deliberate is missing, we will feel depleted. And when we feel depleted, we look at others to solve problems. We expect others to solve our problems. We may do it unconsciously, but we project this need of you, the leader, the teacher, the government. It's your responsibility to make my life better. And we get ourselves stuck in a position of always blaming others because we haven't met expectations. What I'm suggesting is not to absorb responsibility for everything that's good or bad. I'm suggesting is be aware and deliberate of from what point of view you're speaking of. Are you speaking from a point of view of plenishing? Do you feel replenished? Are you able to be creative, to think outside the box? Are you able to have a wider view? Or we stuck into a particular way of looking, a negative mindset that leads to learned helplessness and resentment. And what is needed? It's ownership of the bucket. Is it empty? Is it full? The same with relationships. What we put in is what we get out. When people come to therapy and say, my relationship with my husband is not working because he's done this and that and this, I'm so surprised they say this, because what we put in is what we get out. A relationship is the result of what is mixed, what is transactional. The same here. Our behavior is not independent of our emotions and our mindset. Our behavior and action can be under our control. And positive psychology is suggesting simple yet profound ways to resource ourselves, therefore to function more optimally and make decisions that lead us to a set goal. So here the theory itself, it's experience of positive emotions, it broadens at that moment your thought action repertoires. You see more options, you see more variety. Build enduring personal resources, and that is a spiral. It means that it helps us transcend. So the simplicity of having positive emotions. One very commonly used exercise is, and I've used that with the young people at Abbey College, is to dedicate 5 days or a week where every day one keeps a diary of things they are thankful for. Keeps a diary of examples of beauty, examples of something that looked at its best, and expresses gratitude. Even those 3 small steps done for a week shifts the score on resilience and shifts the scores on positive mindset. Positive mindset is linked to a sense of self-efficacy, sense of purpose. And we come out of a bubble of the social self, and we come to create a contour for our authentic self. The more we feel at home within ourselves, the more we can be vulnerable and have the courage to try out ideas for the sake of trying. Have the courage to try out ways of being for achieving transformation. This belief that we could have a meaningful life if we pay attention to it. And an existential perspective to this would say we have the freedom to choose how we respond right now and in the future. We have the freedom to choose which direction we take. And that freedom comes in spite of life limitations. And children can engage with the notion of choice. They understand that choice and freedom is a responsibility. And it's exciting to see them engage with that. Here's a little more about the data that shows that experiencing positive emotion build valuable personal resources. Intellectual, as I said, physical, social, psychological. People that engage in positive mindset tend to have better friendships, tend to enjoy being in a social gathering. People that experience positive emotions and have resources of positive emotions are able to engage in acts that are for the good of others. It comes more easily, forgiveness comes more easily. Something else that's important, also linked to a habit of positive emotions, is restorative practice, restorative justice. It is the easiest thing we can do in front of adversity is to get angry and remain ignorant. And this is what we see right now across the world in the news. Anger and ignorance is part of what prevents us to stop this war, apart from economic and political reasons. The resources accumulated through experience positive emotion go beyond the momentary aspect of an emotion. They are something we can take with us. And this is something interesting. Barbara Fredrickson and others have tried to come up with a logarithm, a very complicated logarithm, to appreciate what would be a balance between experiencing negative emotions and positive emotions. All of this criticism about this, in short, is saying this, is that for every one negative emotion, so let's imagine you say something that puts me down, or just rejects what I said. You owe me 3 positive emotions to bring me even. How much is in those children's buckets? So if we do not give feedback that is sensitive enough to their trying, we owe them 3 positive emotions to bring them where we were. So in therapy, people sometimes come, and the only way I can describe them is as if they have a pocket with a hole in it. So I offer positive reinforcements and affirmation based on their stories. They hear it, but they fall out. So they say they don't stick to me. I don't know how to hold on to validation, to praises. It's as if I put them in my pocket and they fall out. Why? Part of it is that we are in debt for years and years of, if we accept this ratio, if a child is bullied or feels invisible, for each occasion, we owe them 3. Do some maths. These people that come to me with a hole in their pocket are in big debt. We need to pay that debt. So even the strategy of being very mindful of the impact of a negative emotions. There is constructive criticism is very important, but a child takes it very dear when somehow they are insulted or belittled or made to feel invisible. If they feel in debt under this negative emotion, they will develop the joy to be hidden, disaster not to be found. And then we call them disenfranchised when they reach 18 and 16. They are in debt. So these are possible suggestions to take on board. Something interesting is that there is also a study to show that in romantic relationships, if men can pay attention to this, 1 negative emotion, 5 positive to put it right. Now pay attention to that. It's when you insensitively say something about that dress, you go about 5 things to repair it just to come to even. So people often speak of having good communication. Communication is not just talking. It's talking sensitively and seeing behind the wall and also understand what is the intention. What is your intention in those comments? One of the exercises that I put in my intervention and I follow the story is having young people to think about the dilemma of being right or doing the right thing. That sounds, yes, okay, later. Engage with it as part of your self-observation, and you will see that often the 1 to 3, negative to positive, are about doing the right thing or being right. So if we get stuck with, well, I was right to tell you that looks ugly, then we finished. That dress is ugly, you were right to tell me, you missed the whole point, you're in debt. So it is, what is the intention behind our comments? Emotions cannot be experienced on their own. All our emotions involve another person. Even saying I'm alone, I'm lonely, involves another person. So relationships are a crucial platform, whether you are on Sartre's view, which says hell is other people, or you're in Gandhi's view, which is without people, we cannot develop a sense of self. Nietzsche also said, if you want to study light, what do? We go into a dark room. To delineate who we are, we need the presence of others. And if those others can be sensitive, then we can have an optimal engagement. I flourish, they flourish, because when we help other people, it's also a positive emotion. So by helping other people, in fact, we're helping ourselves. There's a very interesting study recently conducted which shows that the part of the brain that regulates self-control is the same part of the brain that activates when we help other people. So by helping other people, we're helping our future self having better control. Like that doesn't sell it. So many of the things that we want to do in this sleek, fast-moving society is be in control, be disciplined, understand what you are, be focused. One way to do it, to develop that muscle, is to help other people. Interesting. I like this one, the comment about Einstein's quote. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. So this is what I like to say to skeptics. For a second, engage in this proposition, even if you dismiss it at the end, or you take one aspect of it. Because we cannot solve and progress forward using the same thinking that got us to that point. This, just very briefly, resilience. Resilience is a concept that positive psychologists be known for. Resilience is something that we hear a lot. We hear a lot from the government, we hear a lot from everyone that writes about positive psychology. Resilience, in short, is the ability to bounce back from adversity. And it is about how long does it take a person to return to the level that they were before, emotionally, mentally, and so on. And then, resilience is this other aspect. So one is bounce back to the level you were before, but then it's got this wonderful aspect to it, which is the potentiality to grow through adversity. So every moment that we encounter something that's frustrating, that is boring, or dramatic as a loss and so on, every moment of frustration could in fact deliver us to a platform that we can expand. So resilience can be thought of as a muscle. The more we exercise those muscles, the stronger the resilience becomes. So the muscles of resilience could be seen as a physiotherapy of the mind. And the muscles could come under these categories. I enjoy, know what you enjoy and do more of. When you have a break from teaching and you're having that cup of coffee, if that's what you enjoy, savor it. Really make a point of not letting other thoughts or anything else distract that. That's a sense of efficiency. That is something we can do. You say we can't, reconsider it. At least that you can do. Claim your 10 minutes of coffee break. Find out what you enjoy. Enjoyment of this kind, it's based on a deliberate choice, and that then is linked to self-efficacy. Understand what I am, understand what I can, understand what I share, understand my choices from an existential perspective. So if these are the muscles of resilience, you can imagine how many interventions that can be developed in the classroom. There are already interventions made if you want to have a look at, or you can consider yourself. As simple as this. The human condition is created in such a way that it has an internal motivator. To begin with, the motivation as a child is to survive, to make sure your parents don't abandon you. Then is that you are popular and people do not put you in a corner. Then the teachers see you. There are a few major stone preoccupations. But as an adult, what motivates us as an adult? The ability to move forward, the ability to accomplish something. So these are the muscles of resilience. Some of the things that are intertwined to it in it are positive relationships. If we have the context of positive relationships, offer a very vital platform for self-development. Relational skills, self-awareness and self-value, community belonging. Hope is a very important emotion. Generating hope should be a strategy of every leader and every teacher. If we are able to encounter situations where we can still identify what works well in spite of, and we generate hope, we have already moved the process halfway there. This is an intervention that I developed and is being validated. I call it IMEA, and it has exercises and activities that generate new knowledge about self. It's designed for young children in a school context. Emotional resources and emotional intelligence, awareness of values, responding with growth. The results are impressive. The shift happens, including the ability to deal with uncertainty much better. So these are a set of skills that will help the young people into personal development. Let me tell you the theory, the major theories of resilience can be captured under this. Confidence, social support, purposefulness, adaptability. You were mentioning earlier staff development and staff training. I would recommend having a look at this in terms of personal development for staff, if they choose to. Confidence, self-belief, coping with stress situations, the right balance between positive and negative emotions, how to regulate negative emotions, how to set a goal, how to pursue a goal, how to achieve a goal, how to develop skills for self-awareness, how to control our actions in such a way that we feel in charge of them, and how can we feel purposeful. And there you have the social support, which is very important. So as a group of teachers, under a collective umbrella of goals, the support that you can offer each other it cannot be underestimated. And it's the willingness to receive and give that support. There's an expression from another therapist which says, "Why are you angry with me? I was not trying to help you." Why are you angry with me? I was not trying to help you. And for a while I just thought, oh, this is a boring line, I have no idea what it means. And then my child taught me this. Because she was trying to put a talk on and I was trying to facilitate. She got angry. I can do it by myself. Why are you doing this? So helping, supporting one another cannot just be the way we imagine it. It has to be sensitively done so it doesn't disable the person or patronizes the person. So supporting and helping one another requires two things. One is self-knowledge. Understand what is your intention. What do you really want to achieve? And then the other one is sensitivity and emotional intelligence. If you really want to help someone, facilitate someone, have to see behind the wall, work out what the kind of things they may appreciate, the extent, the degree, and so on, and work out your intention. If we want to help, the intention will come forward. But social support, if we get that right, it's already an inherent asset of any community. Based on research and my personal thoughts, I created a list for you now. See what you think. If we accept the proposition that came from Aristotle and beyond, that we first develop habits, then habits develop us. We first form habits, then the habits form us. Then looking at what is our habitual default position under stress, default position in happiness, it's important. Look at what are the habitual practices that define us. They become so entrenched, they define us. But the good thing is that we could unpack and develop new habits. Resolution for 2018, work out what are your strengths. Work out what are your habits, work out which direction you want to go. There are interesting exercises to do in terms of strengths. I've given a link to a very interesting website where 26 strengths and virtues are listed. And there is a test which helps the person identify their character strength. They will identify what strengths you have more of, what strengths you have, and how you would use them. So you may be a leader, you may appreciate wisdom, or you may be fun, or you may be someone that likes competition and has a lot of gratitude. So if you identify your character strength, that may be one way to begin with, then you know which platforms you want to continue to develop, and also you can create better teams by matching strengths. But here is, just to sum up, my list of possible habits for successful leadership. Remain hopeful and focused on the vision, even in spite of difficulties. Have a powerful and inspiring why. Appreciate what works well. Capitalize on positive emotions. Do not underestimate how much they can deliver. Overcome circularity of thinking. Ask both questions, why X and Y doesn't work, and also look at how it makes you feel, how we can find solutions. Look at both. Recraft your strategy using strengths in your team, in your community. Understand that, in fact, the less you control, the more control you get. Nurture creativity. Take action, even if, especially if it's scary, and accept vulnerability as a strength. Importantly, from an appreciative inquiry, we can also adopt this habit of ask different questions. When stuck, ask different questions. Not only what is wrong, but also what is working. Learn to ask a different question. That is part of what in English you refer to as thinking outside the box. So that was a suggestion of 10 possible habits for success that leaders may want to engage with. And to conclude, here are some habits for personal success that some of them you may find resonate with you. Treat the matter of resourcing seriously. Resourcing yourself will help you deliver and be at most optimal. The more we know ourselves, the more we replenish what self likes, the more meaningful life we can engage in. Know your strengths. Surround yourself with people that get you. People that really understand you. The more people that are like that you have around you, the more likely you will have the witnessing that I spoke, and you move away from a joy to be hidden, a disaster not to be found. Find people that get you and hang around them. Learn from people that you admire. Capitalize on positive emotions. Have a powerful and inspiring why. Why in terms of your job, in terms of what you like, in terms of the person that you want people to see when they look at you, the teacher that you want children to see when they look at you, the person that you want to see when you look at yourself. This is a matter of hope, is a matter of personal choice, and it can deliver meaningfulness. Take action, especially, or even if scary. Somebody said once, I'm on my knees, you can't be pushing me for more and more. The answer was, because you are on your knees. It's precisely because you're on your knees, you need to stand up. So there are different ways to look at the situation. If you take a positive mindset, it is a growth mindset. If plans turn out to be useless, that's okay. The act of planning and being deliberate and courageous about taking a risk and thinking outside the box, that is what matters. As they say, the journey is what makes the point, not so much the outcome. This is something that I thought of a lot, and it's meaningful to me. I hope it makes sense to you. Act out of hope and fullness, not out of emptiness and resentment. I'm involved in some of the anti-radicalization interventions that we're trying to achieve here in the UK. And this is a message that I'm trying to tell everyone, is we need to act out of hope, out of restorative and understanding practice, not only out of fear for our security. Being able to act out of hope delivers a future that we can bring some peace and stability. So if you look to act out of hope and fullness, at peace with yourself, the result to be more meaningful and less beaten. And finally, at times, silence and stillness are required for the answer to arrive. As you're saying, Julia, you're still grappling with what are the values. At times, it's necessary to just tolerate the stillness and the answer will arrive. And in this way, we first form habits, and then habits form us. Thank you.